Martin here at Pixel Portable. Hope you're well. Straddling Southeast Asia and Oceania, and between the Indian and Pacific Ocean, is an island chain of over 17,000 islands and home to 273 million people. Which means I'm currently in the Republic of Indonesia. In the last video, I was in Singapore, seeing old friends and unboxing the Steam Deck. Since then, we've been to Jakarta, and after that, onwards to 𝙎𝙬𝙬𝙀𝙬 on the quest across Indonesia.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
It's worth mentioning that it isn't a popular holiday destination for people in the UK, and this has been evident in the lack of fellow Brits that we've encountered. But don't let that stop you, because this part of the world is well worth a look at. So, why am I hurtling up an active volcano in a Vietnam-era Jeep while wearing an army helmet? And how does this relate to today's topic? Well, it all starts with volcanoes, and it ends with the world's most widely traded commodity, coffee. Indonesia has 147 volcanoes, of which a whopping 76 are active to this day. Volcanoes and the looming shadows they cast are probably one of the biggest influences on Indonesian culture. From ancient stone monolithic temples felled by quakes and booms, to towns and villages caught in hellish pyroclastic flow that incinerates everything in its path, volcanoes are a force of nature still untamed. But from what nature takes with one hand, it gives with the other. The side effect from all this volcanic activity is the snow-like ash, falling across the land like a hot winter. This ash, rich in minerals, is an incredible fertilizer. When you have fertile land, you have bountiful crops. In the Java region, and in fact all across the country, coffee is king, accessible almost anywhere and at a staggeringly good quality. As you'd imagine with the world's most traded commodity, coffee is deeply embedded into Indonesian culture. Now, I've consumed a lot here, including kopi luwak. Anytime I see a new way to drink it, I have to try it. One thing I can say for sure is that Indonesia is a heaven for coffee drinkers. So when I realized one of the games I enjoyed playing was designed by a talented man from Indonesia, it all made sense. Let's talk about 𝙬𝙬𝙬 Productions' game. Let's talk about Coffee Talk, and why you should probably play it.
Pixel.
Coffee Talk takes place in what looks like the skyline of a futuristic fantasy version of Seattle, where orcs, elves, humans, and all such coexist but in a modernized setting. You play as a barista serving coffee to customers and listening to their problems. And if you were only skimming the surface, that might seem like a fairly boring and uninviting game that isn't at all related to Indonesia, but I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice to think that way. Now, before we go further, I want to say that complex gameplay isn't something that you're going to find here. Your actions are mostly interactions with customers and making them drinks. It's what drinks you make and how you serve your customers that changes the story. It's unlikely two different people would experience the exact same playthrough. Now, you might already be sat there thinking, wow, this isn't a game for me. After all, the playing element is smaller than you might expect. But let me tell you why I think it's worth your time, and more importantly, your money. If you know anything about coffee and coffee shops, more so the successful ones, it's that they don't actually focus on coffee as their primary business goal. After all, you can make coffee at home, and for cheaper. There are two factors that make or break a good coffee shop. Firstly, it's convenience. It's a lot easier to have someone else make you a fresh coffee when you need it, over lugging about a flask of coffee that you made hours ago. And the other focus of a good coffee shop is the customers themselves. People are your product, and making an inviting environment for people to consume your coffee, catch up with friends, or just work in a different location on their laptop is probably the biggest focus a good coffee shop should have. This is the core focus of Coffee Talk. It's a game about people enjoying coffee and talking. Indonesia is mostly of the Muslim faith. However, there are others like Christianity and Hindu that are still big enough to be seen and all existing together, peacefully. In fact, close to where we stayed in Jakarta, there is a big mosque and a cathedral, both side by side. And I think this is a fitting representation. What I'm getting at is that Indonesia is very multicultural, and what's better still is that from my travels at least, there is no kind of hostility or challenge to these differences. People of various languages, faiths, and fundamental ways of life live together without that feeling of divide, but in fact, a feeling of unity. And this is just like Coffee Talk. Orcs, dwarves, humans, they all get along, only with small nuances of problems that are all too relatable. Coffee Talk tackles this perfectly. You get the impression that this city you're serving customers in has a wide and accepting nature to differences, while also highlighting some of those differences for the sake of creating believable and heartwarming stories. Coffee Talk is closer to being an interactive and beautiful light novel, which wouldn't normally be my vibe, but as someone who often frequents these kinds of places, it didn't take long to feel sucked in, comfy, and cozy. You relax by having a coffee in a coffee shop, and having a moment to break from the grind of daily life. And in Coffee Talk, you have no choice but to feel relaxed, simply by playing the game. The very opening screen gives you a real understanding of the game before you've even started playing, from the main menu and its stylized panels, to the lo-fi music playing in the background. You're here for one thing and one thing only, to relax.
Pixel.
I won't talk in too much detail about the story because in a game like this, it's the main attraction, and I don't want to spoil that for you. What I will say is that it was expertly written by someone that truly understands people, their interactions, and their struggles. While the art is 90s pixel art, and the characters seem pulled from the golden era of anime, there is next to no tropes to be found. Instead, what you're given is a whole cast of endearing, relatable, and very human characters and their lives. Each visit to your shop gives you a peek into their lives, their passions, and their goals. As a result, each character is very unique, and the detailing is incredible. From their clothing design all the way down to their phones. Yes, their mobile phones are customized and often a very good representation of the characters themselves. If you befriend a customer, you'll get their Facebook/LinkedIn type social media profile, and if you peer into this, you'll be able to further build up an idea of that person. From profile pic to the things that they write in their bio, it's all expertly curated, designed, and thought through. And this obsession to detail is really important, especially when the bulk of your game's design is listening to characters' interactions. You've made it vitally important for those characters to feel fleshed out and real. These manifestations of the writer's mind are the key reason why this game has such good reviews from those that have played it. From the choices of music, the storylines, and the visual design, it's not often that you play a game that feels like it's not borrowing much from others and carving out its own place in an almost endless ocean of other games. Games like this, well, they're special. I've been playing this on Steam Deck. Travel has been hectic, and to avoid burnout, I've taken what I consider to be the gaming equivalent to reading a good book, playing some more Coffee Talk. On the horizon is a new chapter, Coffee Talk Episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly. The game has a bright future, riding off its predecessor's success. The game is so very, very well written, crafted, designed and composed. I would say, for what it aimed to achieve in being the ultra cozy and relaxing game with believable characters living in some fantasy world, it's close to a masterpiece. Unfortunately, this is where it gets desperately sad. Because on March 28th, 2022, its Indonesian creator and writer, Muhammad Fahmi, sadly passed away at the young age of 32, leaving behind a newly forged legacy as a writer and designer that he will never get to expand. In the wake of his death, 𝙬𝙀 Productions put the game on sale from March 31st to April 4th to raise money for his family during their darkest hours. Coffee Talk Episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly, which has been finished off and set to release in 2023, is likely the last of Fahmi's writing, coming back for a final farewell. And I know it's one I'll be wishlisting. There aren't a huge number of games that hit like Coffee Talk. So if you need to unwind and escape into some great fiction, then why not pour out a cup of coffee, take a seat, and relax? Because you're in good hands.